Everybody, today's learning is upon the anniversary of the monument to the fallen chaplains, fallen Jewish chaplains in Arlington, and we're learning also L'Zecha Nishmas Rebetzen Rosenblatt, who was the Rebbetzin in this shul for many, many years, and her name was Esther Chaya Basarav Elazar Banish. Well, there are two brothers that I want to talk about today. One is on the monument, and one could be on a different monument. I want to talk about Rabbi Morton Singer, Rabbi Mordechai Tzvi Singer, the chaplain who lost his life in Vietnam, leaving a wife and two small daughters behind, and also his older brother, Rabbi Norman Singer, Benison Yehuda, who was a Rav in Williamsport and was a prison chaplain. But I'll give you a little tidbit about their lives, but I really want to get busy more with their Torah. I keep meeting students who are my age and older, who were students of Rabbi Morton Singer, the chaplain in Vietnam, and I meet them in very interesting ways. So let me tell you what recently happened in Lancaster. Now, Lancaster, where I teach at the vocational yeshiva, you have all kinds of people passing through there. Now, don't get scared, not that kind. It's a vacation spot. Lancaster, PA is a vacation spot. So through Degel Israel Synagogue, a lot of interesting people come through, and they wander all around the shul. And during the year, the shul fights to get a minyan, so they resist it to you in that area. But when it's vacation season, then you can have 3 minyanim and every nook and cranny, whatever nusach you want. So when the people wander around, they wander into my classroom. So a fellow wanders into my classroom, a guy named Horowitz, and in my classroom there's a lot of rabbi pictures from all the different clubs. And he's standing with Rabbi Sackett, the Rosh Yeshiva of our vocational place, and he runs down, he sees Rabbi Feinstein, Rabbi Cutler, the whole team, whoever you like, they're all up there. Hasidish, Litvish, they're all up there. Lubavitch, they're all there. And amidst these bearded faces, all of a sudden, there rises up the face that's right in front of you of Rabbi Morton Singer. And this fellow Horowitz, Eugene Horowitz, starts saying, Rabbi Sackett, what's that man doing here? You have all these big rabbis with the big beards, and then this military fellow. And then before Rabbi Sackett can answer, Eugene Horowitz says, wait a second, I saw that face before. I know that face. He goes, oh my gosh, that's my 8th grade Rebbe. That's my Rebbe. That's my Rebbe from 48 years ago. What is he doing here in Lancaster? So Rabbi Sackett told the fellow, well, we have this guy here, Karp, that he likes to explore different things of Jewish history in the military, and he knows the family. He researches this Rabbi Singer, so they put his picture up there. And the guy walked closer. Now you can't see it in that picture, it's cut off. As you know, when you're in the military and you're dressed like that, you know, you don't have your name there, so in the full picture, you can see it says Singer. So this man almost passed out. Because it's like a ghost coming from the past. You're a rabbi, you know, what are you going to tell me? You know, like we said before about compasses, this is like, boom, somebody, a rabbi from your past coming at you in a very unlikely place. Especially on vacation, because on vacation sometimes people don't always behave the way they should. So your rabbi comes to you from no place, boom. And, you know, the guy, everyone around him said, you know, this is a providential experience over here that you should meet up with your rabbi. So I spoke with this fellow, and it turns out he has a brother in Baltimore, Josh, who also was a student of Rabbi Singer. Some of them had him in class, some of them had him in gym class, and we spoke. And all the students have the same remark, and this will lead us into the Torah piece from Rabbi Singer. They all say, oh, Rabbi Singer, tough guy. Tough guy. Now I had to find out, what does that mean Rabbi Singer was a tough guy? So some of the students said that he was a disciplinarian, which you could understand if it's the early 60s in a yeshiva in Great Neck with all kinds of fun kids and a man with a military background, so you could expect that he wouldn't tolerate a whole lot of fooling around in class. But they told me, no, it's much more than that. You looked at him and you saw tough. And they explained to me, it doesn't mean he wanted to beat you up. It doesn't mean if you came late to class he was going to hit you in the head. there was just this aura. Now, he was physically strong. He was a muscular, compact fellow. I spoke to a fellow Stamen from the Williamsport congregation where the brother was, and he said, when Rabbi Singer walked in the room, you knew he was in the room. He wasn't that tall, but he had like this kind of shoulders. You know those kind of people, they're compact. What?
Fireplug.
Right, and you don't mess with them. And every single student I speak to, they say, oh, Rabbi Singer, great Rebbe. He was tough. He was tough. So I had to really get clear from family members. The students knew a little bit, but the family members explained more to me that Rabbi Singer was both physically and emotionally, whatever, a disciple of Rabbi Kahana. He should rest in peace. Hashem should avenge his blood. And that meant, not that I go around beating people up, it means it's enough already. The Jewish people have been trampled on too much, and I know davening and fasting and mitzvahs, everything is important, but there's a point where, I have to show you that I am tough, and you're not going to step on me, and you're not going to push me around, and if you try to hit me, I am going to hit you back, and I'm going to stop you. Now, as I mentioned another time, Rabbi Singer didn't walk around roaming the streets of Great Neck or the Bronx hitting people. His sister told me when he was a kid, there were some mix-ups in the neighborhood, and he did set straight some of the neighborhood kids, don't mess with little Morty over there. He did do that, but he felt, and he taught it to his students also, that you got to do all the mitzvahs, and you got to listen to your rabbis, but you have to be very healthy, very strong, and you have to know how to fight just in case. Now, don't misunderstand that you shouldn't think he's someone that I don't like Jews, everybody else is the enemy. I have this one uncle, very, very secular Jew, but he says he wants to buy everybody t-shirts. If you're not Jewish, you're anti-Semitic. That's my uncle. And then it's a totally secular guy. And I said, Uncle Paul, what do you say that for? What are you talking about? I'm an impressionable nephew. He says, I've been in business a very long time. I've been around the world. I was in the service, and I've been in Manhattan, and this is what I find. So I said, thanks a lot, Uncle Paul. All right. But Rabbi Singer wasn't like that at all. There's, as you probably know, there is a website about the Vietnam Wall where people put entries from all over the world about their friends and relatives. And there are non-Jews that have very beautiful things there about Rabbi Singer. He wasn't looking to be mean to anybody. He just didn't want to be picked on. And he wanted everybody around him and his family and his students to know you do everything you can to stay healthy and strong. Don't pick a fight. But just let it be known, you're not messing with the Jews anymore. You're not going to steal from me. You're not going to tread on me. We're not going to put up with it. Now, over Shabbos, as you probably heard from my wife's mom, a lot of times you prepare something, and then in the 11th inning, notice, I didn't say the 9th inning because Baltimore is in pain. So I didn't say 9th inning, I said 11th inning. Well, we're not going to get started with that. But in the 11th inning, right before you're ready to meet with your chavrusas, who you are, Hashem will throw you an extra piece of Torah to sweeten the pot a little bit over there. So over Shabbos, I was looking at my Rebbe Sefer, Rabbi Schneider, and he quotes Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Reines. You know who Rabbi Reines is, even if you don't realize it. When you hear the words Mizrahi party, he was from the big rabbis in Europe that were pushing for it. Rabbi Reines, if you go in a lot of Mizrahi schools, they have great big pictures of him. Rabbi Beryl Weinschliter says Rabbi Reines was a brilliant Torah scholar, had a lot of revolutionary ideas. Europe wasn't ready for it yet. He had innovations with training rabbis and having a proper secular education and knowing how to get on in the world, which is all for us as a given in our education. But Rabbi Wein just explains how in Europe, and that they weren't quite ready for that just yet, but he was trying to get them ready for it. So my Rebbe Rashad quotes Rabbi Reines on what you're going to say on Wednesday. On Wednesday, we say, Kel Nekamas Hashem, Kel Nekamas Afia. Sometimes God can be a God of revenge. Hashev Gemul Al Geim. Give back to Hashem. All those that are haughty and nasty to the Jews, give it back to them. And then there's a line you're very familiar with. Ad matai rishaim Hashem, ad matai rishaim yalozu. Until when will the wicked do what they do, Hashem? Until when are you going to let the wicked be joyous? All right, a lot of different interpretations why it has to say until when twice. But Rabbi Reines interprets it like this. Hashem, we Jews in this exile, we take so much junk in so many forms. Ad Mosai Rishayim Hashem. Hashem, until when will you let the wicked people in the world bother us for their own personal benefit, right? Because we know there's many, many stories of countries with countries making terrible rules and edicts and taking away money and privileges from the Jews, but it was for their material benefit. The second one is saying Hashem. And when you're going to make it stop that they're going to take advantage of us for their own gain, until when is it going to stop just plain anti-Semitism where they don't get anything out of it? They just don't get anything out of it. They're just doing it to be obnoxious. Hashem, when is that going to stop already? It's enough. It's enough. Now, perhaps in our time we have more of the second than we do of the first. I don't know if I mentioned in the past, I have a daughter who's finishing up a graduate degree in Michigan. Now, you all read the news and you know Michigan has some populations in Maryland that we don't have so much of, you know? So, now listen, Michigan started off bad because, I don't know, you know, they always like to fight if Jews should buy Volkswagens. That's what people like to fight about that. People like to fight. Jews should buy a Volkswagen German. Jews love to fight about that. I always wonder why Jews don't fight if you can buy a Ford. Because, you know, you just do a little bit of history, you all know there's no opinion to defend Henry Ford. Henry Ford was from the nastiest anti-Semites that there ever were around. He planted the roots of evil in Michigan, and if it wasn't for certain Jewish leaders back in the day who really went after him, and I must imagine to go after Henry Ford in his heyday must have been a very big deal, but there were Jewish leaders that went after him.
Thomas Edison also. Him and Thomas Edison were good friends, Ford and Edison. So imagine that duality.
So you know what? Thank God for Tesla. And we'll assume that this is on Tesla's, not Edison's.
And Schwinn's as well. The bicycle people were horrible anti-Semites as well.
So. Why didn't you tell me that in 1967?
I wasn't here in 1967, sorry.
My mother and I are going to have to talk about
just the
this.
point is that there's not many American products you can purchase without worrying about that.
All right. My little daughter, you know, in Detroit, Michigan, in the 2000s, she has had to deal with some subtle anti-Semitism in Wayne State College. I mean, I feel terrible. You think, you know, already our generation, my father's generation, you should be finished already, but you know, you're still having some stuff, and it was just inconveniencing her and the particular advisor who inconvenienced my daughter, knowing she's a young woman with a baby and a husband. They didn't get anything out of it except just being nasty. And my daughter found out that certain people in the college had a history of doing such. So when Rabbi Singer would look at these psukim, he would take one more step. Ad Masai Rishayim Hashem, Ad Masai Rishayim Relozo Hashem. Until when do we have to put up with this? Until when? Hashem, you know what? I don't know what the answer is until when, but I'm going to start doing something, and you do the rest. I'm going to make myself healthy and strong. I'm not going to be talked down to anymore. And then Hashem, I'll do my part, and you answer what the until when is, which is the way Rabbi Singer, Rabbi Kahana taught their students. Just as an aside, I know mentioning Rabbi Kahana's name is very controversial, but Rabbi Sackett from our yeshiva is a student of Rabbi Kahana. And it doesn't mean he sends Lancaster Yeshiva boys JDLing all over Lancaster to bother anybody, but Rabbi Sackett said that from his experience and his siblings, Rabbi Kahana is a totally misunderstood person, what he's all about, what he did, what he didn't do, what he meant, and all that kind of things. And there's a lot of good stories about him that don't get out. So he's very misunderstood. So on that note, Rabbi Singer's favorite mitzvah would be staying healthy and strong. So I can't prove this, but I think I have a right to assume that Rabbi Mordechai, Rabbi Morton Singer, again, he's the one on the left. All right, he's clean shaven. Was he always clean shaven? No, his sister-in-law was alive and well in L.A. Bruce, wouldn't it be a great name for a sitcom? Alive and Well in L.A., be followed by Alive and Kvetchy in Annapolis. Yeah, there you go. I like we can make big money over this. All right. So anyway, his sister-in-law told me that before he went back into the military, he did have a goatee, but once he went back to Vietnam, so I guess in between the 6-Day War and Vietnam, he had a goatee. But in the military, certainly in 1968, you're not supposed to have facial hair, right?
Right.
Now they tolerate it a little bit?
If you get a profile, you can have it. They accept profile, like if you get bumps and those things in your face, then you can grow a full beard.
Oh, all I know is the 68, she told me he had to make sure he was clean shaven.
Navy allowed beards back then. Navy allowed beards back then.
He wasn't Navy.
Yeah. Well, I said no. Cannot have beard.
The Israeli army doesn't let?
I meant, if you are just regulars, you can, but if you go to special forces,
you can have
or you pilot, special forces that need special masks for diving, for fighting a biological chemical attack and things like that, if you need to wear special masks, there's no beard.
So you couldn't have it?
In my time, it wasn't beard.
This explains everything. Israel needed to send a rabbi with special force experience to deal with this congregation. That tells you must be very, very special. Not everybody gets that, Not everyone gets that. All right.
Hammer.
So now we know Rabbi Weisblum can and will deal with everything and everyone. All right, Baruch Hashem, we're lucky. So
you call it in Hebrew Krav Maga.
What?
Krav Maga.
I was learning Krav Maga and teaching Krav Maga. Krav Maga is
it's a martial arts that was developed in the ghetto.
Israeli martial art.
That established in a ghetto, but then it's Israeli guy that established it much
It
seriously.
was established in the ghetto.
I hope you don't have to do that with the people in the shul, but okay.
It's intended as an unarmed person. One single unarmed person should be able to defend themselves against multiple armed people.
And this was invented before Bruce Lee.
This was invented during World War II, as far as I know. So.
Okay, so I would like to assume that I have in front of me Rabbi Singer's favorite Sefer HaChinuch. You know who the Sefer HaChinuch is? It's the Book of Mitzvahs. Rabbi Weisblum probably quotes him at least 10 times a year, the Sefer HaChinuch, Rabbi Aaron Alevi. And he discusses over here the mitzvah of health. Now, if you try to look up the mitzvah of health in this Sefer HaChinuch, you're not going to find it. You have to cheat. I tried to find the mitzvah of being healthy and strong. The rabbi hit it. In the mitzvah of putting a protective a fence on your roof, inside of the mitzvah of putting a protective fence on your roof, that's where he talks about health. It's a very Jewish thing to do, Bruce. Listen, my Rabbi Schneider told me, each country the Jews go to, we have a lot of bad to learn from the nations and a lot of good to learn. And Rabbi Schneider said every single nation the Jews went to, we pick up good shtick and bad shtick. And my Rebbe says, when you come to America, there's a lot of bad things to learn, but there's two great things. Americans taught the Jews something about cleanliness, which coming from Europe and Russia, they definitely didn't know as well before. Americans educated Jews about cleanliness, like it or not. Halavai, there should be a shul whose floor is as clean as a hospital or a church floor. It's cleaner than the place in your house. You ever see that? They wax it 10 times a day. It's incredible. And my Rebbe also said, the Goyim tend to be a lot more organized than Jewish people are. They just are, like it or not. Sometimes they're too organized. But when it comes to looking up something in the Torah, sometimes the rabbis, God bless them, they don't organize it the way we would do it. Nice, neat table of contents. It's inside this and this and page this and page that. You stand on your head and roll over, then you find it. You want to say something? No. Okay. Anyway, so inside the mitzvah to have a fence, it has the mitzvah to be healthy and strong, which I'm sure Rabbi Singer loved this. And the Sefer HaChinuch asks a question, and the Sefer HaChinuch likes to ask questions that you'd be too embarrassed to ask anybody. So he asks them for you. He goes, yes, it's a mitzvah to be healthy and strong, but let's ask this question. And when you hear this question, you're going to say, that is a dumb question. But he runs for us and he asks it. He says, you ever think like this? Everybody tells me that God runs the world, divine providence, and He's always weighing my mitzvahs and averas. He's always doing all that, and He's making decisions about me. And you got that Gemara in Chulin, which is a whole shiur in itself. Mary Weissman talked about it. A person doesn't stub their toe down here unless there was an announcement from upstairs. Well, asking a quote-unquote dumb question, if God is always judging and weighing and deciding things, well then, why do I have to watch my health? If I'm meant to get sick, I'll get sick. If I'm not meant to get sick, I won't get sick. If I'm meant to fall down and then break my toe, I will. If not, not. Now, he's not saying this is a good question. He's just doing it as an introduction. Now, I got to tell you, there are people who think like this. I'm telling you, especially women. That they'll start, oh, I don't have to worry about this, I don't have to worry about that. Oh, well, it's decreed from God and all. I don't have to worry about my health and all that. Rabbi Shlomo Neiman from the Yadas said this took it all. He said one time he was hearing a woman talking, and the woman said, 2 + 2, God willing, it'll equal 4. And Rabbi Neiman almost passed out. Certain things are just, givens in the world, like, lady, where did you get this from? But, you should just know, thank God we have more Jewish things to read than ever we had before. But there are some people that write like this. Bruce is trying to find them and burn down their houses or educate them. Now we slow down a little bit, but, because of that need. But basically he says, and what do you do if somebody would ask you such a thing? I don't have to be careful my health and my strength, because whatever's going to happen to me is basher meant to be anyway. So the Sefer Chinuch says, all right, God does watch a lot of things for us. But he goes, but let me explain to you the facts of life. God created the world with a lot of rules of nature. The world is built on Yesodot HaTeva, fundamentals of nature. And God decreed fire is hot, and water puts out fire. And God decreed that if you stick your finger in the Havdalah candle, unless you're one of those dumb kids that likes to go, look at this, and you go, please, unless you're one of those kids, and if you do enough, that's going to hurt too. If you stick your finger in fire, it's going to burn. And if you pour water on fire, it is going to go out. Never mind with all this decreed and all this business. And the Sefer Chinuch says that this is from your cartoon days. If you walk down the street and a piano drops and hits you in the head, it will knock your brain out. It's just a fact of life. If you jump off a bridge, you will die. That's the way it is. You can't jump over the bridge and say, well, God, if it meant to be, a birdie will come. He says, throw all that out. He goes, let me explain to you what God really did. Yes, God decrees a lot and God weighs a lot, but the world has natural reactions, and they will hurt you if you don't watch it. And the same God that put the dangers there gave us the tools and the ability to make ourselves healthy and strong and watch out for ourselves. It doesn't work all the time. That's a separate issue. If you did everything you were supposed to do to be healthy and gesund and strong and everything, and you still stepped on a lizard and caught a strange virus from Algiers, then you can talk about God. But he says, Hashem was there for you. He gave you the tools in your hand and your mind and your body. So the same God that put the dangers there, He gave you the tools. Use the tools. That's your mitzvah. He says, don't go with that question, oh, everything's okay, I can go blindfolded down the street and I won't fall in the sewer, or like all those Roadrunner cartoons from the 60s, Tom and Jerry, whatever you like to watch back then. So he says, that's what it's really all about. So Rabbi Singer taught his students and his relatives again and again and again, it's a mitzvah to be strong and healthy in every single way. That way you can do mitzvahs better, and that way you can defend yourself if you have to. And you don't want to look to defend yourself. The Ksav Sefer, Rabbi Sofer from Pressburg, he says, there's a pasuk that says there'll become a point where the nations will fear us. He says, if you think that means the Jews are going to be a bunch of Spartan hulks walking down the street, terrifying everybody, he says, that wouldn't be honorable to the Jewish people. And don't go picking and beating up people just to prove a point. No. He's a respectful Jewish person, is someone who's strong and keeps the mitzvahs well. That's a Jew that Goyim will respect. But that's what Rabbi Singer taught his students, and I spoke to some students that were particularly selected from the 8th grade to learn higher martial arts because he felt that was a leadership position for them, and it was something very, very important to him. As far as I know, he was only in Vietnam for 6 weeks before he got killed. There's no record of anybody, treating him bad or anything like that. That everybody, Jew and non-Jew alike, seemed to love this man, and it doesn't seem to be something that he used up. But still, his students still say when you met him, you thought, that's one tough Jew. Don't bother him. Don't bother them. So that's one thing I want to mention of him. Now already it's blocked the clock, but I know what time it is. I just want to give you a nugget from his brother. We had spoken that Rabbi Norman Singer felt very strongly Jews should walk around with Jewish suitcases, and one of them is a strong feeling, I belong to the Jewish people. Okay. Part of belonging to the Jewish people is Jewish people have certain traits, some good and some bad, but there's 3 in particular Rabbi Norman Singer would put in our battery to be recharged. And we're going to find out one of them has to be charged more than the other. The Gemara in Yevamah says, David HaMelech taught us, Jews naturally are supposed to have 3 traits, and if you meet a Jew who doesn't have these 3 traits, they actually say, question if they're Jewish or not. And that is, Jews are supposed to be basically merciful, they're supposed to know when to be ashamed, and they're generally kind. That's a generality. Bruce is making a list in his head. All right, fine. But the Gemara Yevamah says that there was a group of people called the Natinim that were very, very cruel to King Shaul's grandchildren, and David HaMelech said, you're not merciful, you're not kind, you don't know when to be ashamed, you're not regular Jews anymore. Now, so I just want to leave you with this question and part of the Mashah's answer, and this is where battery charging would come in from Rabbi Norman Singer, the brother of Rabbi Morton. And Bruce, as they say in the Super Bowl, this bud's for you. King David, you're saying that Jewish people are supposed to be naturally kind, merciful, and know when to blush. Is that nature or is that nurture? Are we born that way or do we have to work on it? Now the answer to this question will answer all the rotten Jews you ever met or will meet. So the Marshal, Rabbi Shmuel Adis, answers the question, and I'm just going to leave you a piece of it because we'll work on it another time if you let me in. And you're thinking, Rabbi, I'm holding out for Goldberg's bagels. He says, you like bagels? I can get that fresh for you. Anyway, he says, and Bruce, you can argue whatever you want. Merciful, we are supposed to be naturally merciful. We are. Kind, we're supposed to be naturally kind. But knowing when to be ashamed and knowing when to blush, he says that's not natural. And not only is it not natural, he goes, very often, we're not good at it at all. Because the Gemara in Beitza says over there that Jews are naturally chutzpahdik and audacious. And as your mother Rabbi said when she pulled your ear, the bistan is upon him. So the Marsha says Jews naturally, no, we don't know when to blush. We could be very nasty. And then he has to explain, well then what's King David talking about? So 2 out of 3, so if we're not naturally knowing when to blush, then why does King David say that we do know when to blush? So he says it has to do with recharging your battery with a lot of Torah. That needs a lot of explanation. Bruce is already in against this, but he does get into it, and we could discuss it another time. But he says when it comes to knowing when to do the right thing, having an inner compass, or charging your battery properly, he says the natural kindness and mercy, all right, that battery needs some charging. To know when to blush, to know when to be ashamed that you're not making the Jewish people look good, he says that we have to work on through Torah learning, but we have to talk about how to do that. All right, so our learning should be a schus for the Rebetzen and for all the 14 chaplains that are on the that are on the monument, and we look forward to sharing and discussing together other issues. Thank you very much. There's plenty more delicious to eat.